Hello, Dr. Moore. All right, so I'm going to talk to you specifically about a lesson called criticism, how to manage it. Now, criticism is one of those kind of funny things where some people can accept it and some people can't. I boil it down to this idea of getting your feelings hurt. Definition. So, getting your feelings hurt is when you are studying with somebody and you claim you're going to get an A on an exam and you get it back and it's not what you expected, and your feelings hurt even more when the person you were studying with and helping and tutoring gets a higher grade. That's what I call getting your feelings hurt. But we can also get our feelings hurt when someone says something to us that's actually truthful, but we're not willing to accept it yet. So the idea of this workshop is centered on this quote that I came up with called, "The truth should have value separate from the source if the information can be applied and used in a positive way." So no matter who is giving it to you, maybe that person is someone that you don't like, maybe that person is somebody who you know is out to get you, but if what they actually tell you is truthful, you should be able to find a way to separate yourself from that person, maybe go home, like me back in the days, curl up in the fetal position, and be like, damn, yeah, what they said was true. Right? We should be able to figure out a way to still look at and discern information that's given to us, even though it's not from somebody who is warm and fuzzy, that we know likes us, if that information can be used. And so, again, good luck, win. Okay, all right, so this lesson is on 2.9 for people who are following Virtual Land, so you guys can go ahead and follow there online. But it's criticism, how can we manage it? So let me start with, let me have you go ahead. Could you read that quote for us real quick?
Yeah, the truth should have value, separate from the source. Meaning the person receive it can apply it and grow in a positive way.
All right, so what do you think I'm trying to get at with that statement? Yeah?
Probably like if you can, like any kind of like feedback they receive, like information you receive, you can separate for the person if you don't like the person or you like the person. Like getting away, like a personal feeling from that person you receiving the feedback, and only center of what the feedback is, and use it later on, you might get better or something, like depending on what you're doing.
Okay. So, even the people in Virtual Land, is this easier in theory to kind of go by?
In theory, yes. In practice, it's way, way harder.
The truth should have value separate from the source. Because a lot of folks, depending on the source, I'm not going to listen to you, right? Because I don't like you. You're my enemy. You're somebody trying to tear me down. But the truth, based on this statement, should have value separate from the source if the person receiving it can apply it and grow in a positive way. So, everyone's different. And I'm not saying that everyone is built like everybody else, but I'm going to give you guys an example, right? Because I'm built a little different, but you know, there could be some positives to it, right? Let me set the scene up. So I'm in graduate school. I have to take a qualifying exam with a proposal that I'm saying that I'm going to do my thesis work on, another separate proposal that I'm supposed to just be doing to show the people that I can have outside thoughts outside of my proposal, and then I have to then defend that proposal to 4 faculty members, right, over the course of a couple hours. And if you pass, then you move from a graduate student to become now a PhD candidate, and then you can just work on that proposal for the rest of the time you're there, get some results, and move forward. So you can imagine it's high pressure, it's high stakes. You can imagine that people are going to do practice talks with their proposal. They're going to choose people who are in their class that can quiz them. They may even choose people in the same lab as the professors that are going to be quizzing you because they may think like them. People have all these strategies around it, right? Because, they want to pass the first time through and keep it moving, right? So there were people in my graduate class, it's about 25 of us, that didn't like me. I don't know why they didn't like me, because I felt like I was cool and I could get along with everybody, but I didn't like them either, right? So, we just like, okay, that's where we at, right? But I rolled up on them for my practice talk, and I'm like, hey, you want to get together, I'm going to have a practice talk, I'm going to have some good food, it's going to be on Tuesday at 7 p.m., come through. And they're looking at me like, why is Fred inviting me? Because he knows I don't like him. I'm like, yeah, come through, Because, most likely they're going to try to tear me down. They don't like me, right? I'm like, but then I already have that weight into my strategy. So they come through. And what did they do? They start coming at me with these hard questions, right? I'm in my fighting stance, right? I'm like, okay, I know that one. And then, boom, they hit me with this question. I'm like, oh, damn. I don't know the answer to that. Good looking out. I need to learn this. I need to learn that. I need to learn this. They think they're tearing me down. But in my mind, you're building me up because you're identifying gaps in my knowledge. And guess what? I don't care if I look stupid in front of you. I don't want to look stupid in front of the people who are going to determine if I'm actually going to pass this exam or not. So, we good. This ain't checkers, right? This is chess. But it takes a lot of confidence in yourself to put yourself in a very vulnerable situation to get that kind of feedback. Especially from people who are snipers that are trying to take you out. But again, I'm just saying, I'm built a little different. I didn't care. I was like, yeah, come through. And do what's in your human nature because of a relationship, do what you're supposed to do. But I, would rather know what I don't know versus pretending I know something and get my feelings hurt later. All right, something to think about, but that's kind of part of what's incorporated in this statement. Any thoughts, any comments that folks want to throw out to that real quick? All right, y'all quiet like Silence of the Lamb. All right, so let's go. Is it possible to develop your mind to a point where you can accomplish all the goals in life without help from others? What do you think about that, Jackie?
I think that's awesome.
Do you think it's possible?
Yes.
Okay, now tell me why you believe it's possible.
I think it's possible because it's pushing you to make strategies.
But so are you saying that should be a goal, or you're saying that like you can achieve that if it is a goal?
You can achieve that if it is a goal.
All right. Does everybody agree with that? Okay. What are your thoughts about that?
Wait for that sound to pass so I can focus.
Can you pause that? We're good.
There's a motorcycle or something.
Okay.
Oh,
That sound.
no, that one, yeah. No, I don't. Because whether or not you think they're helping you, interacting with people will change your goals. They will provide different perspectives, whether you're open to them or not. They'll provide you with different perspectives. And even if you were to shut them down and shut them out and be like, no, I don't care what this person says, you're still going to internalize some of that. And you might say, I don't need their help, and you'll bounce the other way. And That's just human nature. You know, you're not gonna get that far without interacting with people, and you need people to look out for you, whether you believe it or not. And even if people wanna pretend they're hyper independent, we're social creatures. We're not. We are built for helping each other. That's what we do. Whether we accept it or not, I truly don't believe anyone in this life gets anywhere without someone helping them along the way. Whether that's intentional help or accidental help, or whether you believe it's help or not, there's always help. I don't think that you can get anywhere without it.
All right. So I think you're saying a couple things. You're saying that we need diversity of perspective,
Absolutely.
right? So we want people who think differently than us to help us vet through and add to or subtract from a potential direction. And then what I think you're also saying too is that anything that one does that's great, it's more than one person doing it.
And even if you do it all on your own, it wouldn't matter because there's no one to show it to. So you don't have anything to show for it. You could become the coolest person in the world and nobody would know. You could become the smartest person in the world and nobody would know.
Okay.
So there's always input along the way, and there's always feedback.
Well, so that's I agree with that, and what I'm also saying is that that's part of the scientific process, right? Is to actually be able to think about things comprehensive. Like you know, what scientists do is they ask questions. They ask questions about the physical world. They ask questions about the life science world. They ask questions and they try to find the answers to those questions. A lot of times, people ask questions about things that are personal to them. Someone who does work on cancer drugs for 30 years, they're probably doing it because they had somebody that they knew that was close to and they were affected by it and they want to spend their energy in this lifetime trying to find a cure for that. Like, people do things that they're passionate about and they're motivated to do. But people ask different questions based on how they grew up, their experiences, based on their genetics. All these things we want and need people to ask different types of questions so then we can comprehensively as a whole be able to address the human needs, right? And it's impossible for one person, to be able to think about all the questions and or all the perspectives that people who have different gifts and talents have that you don't. It'd be nice to have all the talents in the world, but that's not the case. So it's something that we should just incorporate into how we actually then move and shake in regards to students of science. Terry. All right, so I think we kind of answered the second question. How does feedback play in the learning and discovery process of science? Or does anybody kind of want to add? What do you think about that, Andrew? Feedback. How does feedback potentially play?
Well, since so many people that give you feedback already have like possibly years of experience, they're not giving you a little snippet of that without you having to go through all those trials, tribulations.
Okay, so just the even fact of someone who's being an expert in the area that you're emerging into and are learning about is another part of the feedback process, discovery process of science. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to that or subtract anything from that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Even just outside of and the people who might know more than you, people who might know less than you could offer you a different perspective, even if they're not trained in science. Because I mean, a lot of scientists. Well, let me rephrase that. A lot of people who are at the top of their field are very immersed in something, often lack the perspective of a complete outsider. Mm-hmm. So, having the feedback of someone who would be considered less than you in that field or doesn't excel as much in that area is also important.
No, I agree. And I couldn't have said it any better. And so you see that in science. You see in science where you have a group of scientists that believe that this question can't be answered, or they've tried for years and they weren't able to get to the other side of this question or a solution. And then you have somebody who lives in Timbuktu that doesn't know anything about that gets it to work. And they're like, damn, because they weren't biased by all the people in the community saying, we don't believe this is possible. They just used their mind and figured a way to make it happen. So yes, that does happen in the science community. And when you come into science, your ability to be curious, your ability to ask good questions and just probe helps out the people that may be your mentors, that may be saying, damn, I never thought about it that way. Okay, let's think about that differently. And so, yes, you guys all have powerful minds, and you have to learn how to believe in yourself, have the courage to ask questions, sometimes around people who may know more than you, and really map your mind around what people are doing and why they're doing it, and does it make sense to you? Anybody else have any thoughts, comments about that? All right.
I do.
Go ahead.
I just find it awesome about science that we do need feedback, like we need positive feedback and negative feedback to be able to see like the correlations like in system. So I find it even more empowering like when as students like to have some type of feedback, like if whatever assignment we're working on, or like you said, I didn't see it that way. Feedback definitely is a big thing in science, I believe as well.
No, and thank you for sharing that. And the other thing too is that if you understand the importance of it, then you can seek that, right? Because whenever I'm working on a project, I always want to have other people's perspective. I always try to get in front of somebody else. And even when I was studying in school, I chose people in my study group that thought differently than me on purpose. So if I know that I'm pretty balanced between my left and right, I can go linear, but I also can go spiral, I can go loop-de-loop. But I wanted somebody in my group that was like extreme left brain, systems, engineering minded. And I wanted somebody in my group that was even more right brain loop-de-loop than me. And even if I got the right answer to a problem, I want to know how you did it. And I went through every single one of your steps to see if any of your steps are more efficient than mine. Because what I don't know when I get this exam in front of me is if your way of thinking is going to get me to the answer of something that I've never seen before, that I'm being challenged to figure out. And most students don't do that. It may take you an extra 3 minutes to just go through your workout, the person you're studying with, and be like, can I take a look at your stuff? And just go through your steps. Why? Well, why'd you do this? Then I skipped 2 steps. And in my mind, okay, I skipped 2 steps. Was it lucky that when you skipped those 2 steps, you got the right answer? Or is it universal what you did when you skipped those 2 steps, when it works all the time? I'm even going to go there with that too to figure out, like, what's up? So something to think about, but like, I want to know that, right? I want to know. What you know, I want to know too. So question number 3. If there's a spectrum of how much you value how much value you place on criticism from others, where would you place yourself along this spectrum? Where 1 represents the thoughts that criticism is worthless, and 10 represents you put a high premium on criticism. Like, where would you kind of place yourself? Would you put it at a 2, a 4, a 7, a 10? Think about that for a couple seconds, and then let me know, because I need to know. What are you thinking, Jackie?
I would take it out of 7. For me, I like any criticism because I want to see where I can improve, where I can grow. So to me, it's something that's really high for me. Like, I look forward to criticism because we're not perfect. We're constantly changing and evolving. So if I can get some feedback on how I can improve, it's always a win for me.
Okay. All right. How about you, Andrew? What you thinking?
I'll put a 9. Only reason it's not a 10 is because, of course, it's going to be like some point of this criticism every now and then, but not because like it's easy to get stuck in our own head, think like the world is in our head, but you need that outside perspective to give you a reality check every now and then, because they see the world differently too, and that's how FN science is. It's not like opinion based, it's factual.
Okay. All right. Anybody in the 5 or below? What you thinking?
Well, 5 or below? No.
Okay. All right. What number you thinking?
Okay. I was thinking between like 7.5 and 8.5, depending on what it's for.
Okay.
Just because not all criticism is going to be constructive.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had it closer to a 10, I might value it over my own opinion,
Mm-hmm.
which is my own opinion is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I can't just take all criticism at face value. It's like discretion is important, and also there are times, at least in my experience as a musician, I always draw back to that. But as a musician, where people have given me advice, and I've taken the advice and I learned it and I've thrown it out the window because I don't actually feel like I want to do it that way, because I feel like I want to learn a different way, or I want to apply it a different way, or I want to have my own method just so I can figure that out. And then if I want to, I can come back to that advice that I've been given, because I have it now. But I mean, experimentation is always important regardless, but that's why it's not at a 10 for me.
Okay. Well, you bring up a really good point, and I would say that whatever perspective, positive or negative criticism people give, we choose to disregard it or not. Right? We don't have to take anything. It's just, do you value it? Right? Because it's nice that you have your own process. And it's also nice that you are open to listening to other people's process. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to, figure out what I believe works for me and what doesn't. So another example. I'm in grad school, and when I'm doing it, when I want to do experiments, say I'm doing let me take a step back and just say, there were a lot of students who were really smart and they wanted to be the smartest person in the room. But they're in a room of now 25 grad students that were maybe the cream of crop wherever they came from, and a lot of folks are just average. And it messed with them because they're average, but they're average among a bunch of people who are really smart. Now, I didn't care because, one, I came from the community college and I'm a scrapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna get to where I need to get to. I don't have to be the person who's doing all it. No. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get to where I need to get to. So the ones that, for whatever reason, are competitive against other people when their research has nothing to do with anybody else but you, are doing it because they feel like they have to feel like they're better than someone else. So they want to do an experiment and they're like, I can get this to work on my own. And so they don't want any feedback from anybody. And guess what? They get it to work on their own. But it took them 5 months to get it to work on their own. Now me, again, I'm a little different, right? So I'm gonna read, as much as I can about the experiment, this new experiment that I'm doing. I'm gonna have a direction that I feel like I wanna go in, but I'm gonna talk to somebody about it who has experience, and I'm gonna say, what would you do if you were me? Right? And I'm gonna listen to all the stuff they say, and I'll be like, okay, bet. Then I'm gonna talk to somebody else. I'm gonna talk to somebody else who thinks differently, but I'm actually gonna choose somebody who took a long time to get that experiment to work. I want to talk to somebody, because somebody who failed 100 times, they know way more reasons and ways that things could fail than the person who got the shit to work within the second or third time. And I want to use the information from the first person against the second person and be like, okay, they're bringing up some good points. And then I'm going to tap one more person just to put a cherry on top. And then at the end of the day, I may go with 100% of what I was going to go with before. Or I may go with 25% of what the first person said, 25% of what the second person said, and nothing what the third person said. But my point is that I still want to bring all the information into the wheelhouse. then make the best decision, use my discernment to make the best decision that I believe can get me to where I want to get to. All right, does that make sense? Hey, Guado, what you thinking? Okay, I think you're muted.
Yeah, so I think criticism should always be considered, you know. You should always listen to it. But when you're gonna evaluate or assess where you scale the criticism between 1 and 10, there will be factors involved in the process, you know, like it depends who it's coming from. It depends on what the criticism is. If it is the right person, it might be wrong, you know, on what he's saying. And sometimes there might be times in which we are the wrong ones, you know, and but should always be considered, always looking at it like a way to improve, you know, because if it is the right criticism, just you know, commenting on your weaknesses is a great opportunity to become that into a strength, you know?
Yeah, so I agree. So part of what we talked about earlier was that there was a quote at the very beginning of the workshop stating that the truth should have value separate from the source, right? Regardless of who gives it to you, if the person receiving it can apply it and grow. And because we do sometimes get caught up in the deliverer of the information. But if the deliverer of the information has bad intentions, but the stuff they're saying actually is still truthful, right? Because, you know, we're all human, right? There's people who I know were just trying to tear me down with the criticism. And in the moment, I didn't want to give it up to them, right? I didn't want to acknowledge that, like, what they were saying had any truth. I'm like, I hear that, I see you, but I don't know if I believe that, right? But I'm still gonna go home and I may get in the fetal position in a place that's comfortable and be like, damn, they were right about that, right? I'm still gonna figure out and be like, I couldn't give it up to them in the moment, but I still recognize what they were saying is truthful. So, but that's another muscle we have to build, right? Versus just saying, no, I'm blocking everything this person says. I'm not even listening to them because I don't like them. Even though what they're saying has some truth to it. But it's something that we have to kind of build up to if we believe that feedback and criticism can be of value and we don't take what the person is saying personally. Right? We don't say that what this person is saying can actually harm me. It's just their opinion. It's just their opinion. And I can either decide that I want to, chew on it and receive it or not. All right. So what is the most effective way that someone can provide criticism to you where you actually believe you can hear it? Are there ways of the delivery? What are you thinking?
I don't feel when someone tells me I feel like criticism is only right or wrong. Either they're telling me that I'm right, or either I'm wrong or I'm right. So when I hear someone telling me that I'm wrong, normally I just check my work and see if I'm right or wrong, and so normally I value criticism because so I normally hear everything basically because I normally because I have to either refute them or agree with them that I'm right or wrong.
All right, so I'm glad you brought that point up. Now, I think in a creative process, things don't have to be binary, either right or wrong.
I guess yeah.
And you could tell me something, and I could be like, this is what you could do to make it better. Not what you're doing is wrong, but I found a better way or more efficient way. So it's not that there's a right or wrong, it's just there's a different way, a more elegant way, a different pathway to see that results because someone else has a perspective that's different than yours.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I would take whatever method they use and I would just steal it from them. And
But your pushback to that method could be you creating a pathway that's in between both of your methods that's even better than the one they gave. Again, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong, it has to be black or white. It can still be the creative process of refining and enhancing and optimizing, right? That's part of the creative process. Go ahead.
So, personally, if somebody just tells me I'm right or wrong without telling me why, I completely disregard it. Like, unless it's like something that's obviously wrong, like a math problem. You know, that's different. But, for example, my music again, sorry. If I show someone a song I'm working on and they go, it's good, I like it, it's like the worst thing ever. Like, I want to know how you feel about it. I want to know how it makes you feel. I want to know what you think it could use. I want actual feedback from people. Like, if someone's not providing me something other than yes or no, I'm like, if you say no, it's like, okay, well then, are you going to give me any actual feedback? Or if they go, yes, you did this right, that's not criticism. That's not constructive even. That's just confirmation.
So I do agree that it's nice to have criticism in some type of context, right? So you can kind of, and some of that is the way that person may naturally think, and some of that is just the training that they may have. Because sometimes people give you, criticism, and it's a feeling that they have about it, but they haven't put it into words yet. And they have to go through a process of letting it bubble up. It's not that it's not valuable, they just can't put it into words yet. And you can have follow-up questions or ways of maybe getting them comfortable enough to formulate words around why it makes them feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
But I think that in the sciences, especially in academic institutions, that's something you don't necessarily have to worry about. Because when you have people who are highly intellectual, they'll be like, you're wrong. And this is the reason why you're wrong. Point 1, point 2, point 3. And they'll be like, these are some research articles that you can go reference that will further support that you're wrong. And on top of that, if they want to show off, they'll be like, this is how we fix it.
Well, it's that second part that's the important thing. It's that second part that's the important part, and they'll tell you why.
I mean, that's if the person even knows. But I'm saying when you're talking with people who are really smart, they can go through those steps.
Right, yeah.
And you're like, oh, damn, okay. You put your tail between your legs and you just walk away and be like, I'm going to do what they told me to do.
Right.
But I'm just saying, that's the training that you get in academic research institutions. They think that way. So they'll be like, yeah, sure, okay, let's go, right? I mean, and sometimes it's easy to say, bring it on, versus like, that kind of hurt my feelings the way you said that, because they were stank about it, but they still were right.
Yeah.
And then, you go home and be like, F them, you know what I'm saying? But shoot, I'm about to go implement this one because they were still right, but I still don't like them, right? You got a point there, Andrew? What?
Probably. Alright, so after they have like an initial disagreement with what I've written up and like start to critique it, I think it would be really constructive if they could say like how they saw it, and sort of build a connection to like the way I saw it. So like when they give like feedback and reasons why they thought I was incorrect, each sort of reason can kind of be used as like a step to make the next improvements.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to say, I'm translating in my own words, explain how you saw or thought about the problem or the advice. And I think that this is very valuable because it gives you a sense of their perspective and how they came about getting to that conclusion or that advice. And it also can give you a way to have a 360-degree look that's different than the way you naturally think. If you're trying to be comprehensive about how you're thinking about things. Okay. Anybody out there virtual land? We have some, like one person trying to trying to join. Lon, you still there, or you gone?
I'm stupid.
All right. Do you have any thoughts about kind of what we're saying? What ways that you believe people should maybe provide you with criticism where you can hear it?
Actually, I don't have any special idea. Yeah, I mean writing everything, everybody opinion in my paper.
Okay.
Still listen and then write down.
Okay. All right. Anybody else in virtual land? Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, I think I wrote something in the comments before I got disconnected. But I think the best strategy is probably first starting off like with your strengths. Like I feel when someone tells me about my strengths, like what I'm doing good, or like feel like that was a good job, like I wouldn't have done it that way, but here's how I did it, or probably a faster way to do it that you wouldn't know, but just kind of just highlighting my strengths. I feel like I won't feel so discouraged because they're telling me I'm doing something good, but they're giving me the criticism and the feedback. I feel like I would take it more like as a lesson rather than talking down like I'm done.
Yeah, no, yeah, you bring up a really good point, and I think that, I think that people have done studies on this, and don't quote me on this number, but when they hear something negative, they will hold on to that so many more times over what the positive thing that you may say. So if you start with the negative, they may even shut their minds off and not even hear the positive because they're amplifying the negative. So being able to talk about the positive and highlight that, and then maybe the way that you reshape your criticism, you can still potentially reshape it in a growth mindset way versus a totally you just effed up way where that person may take it a lot stronger than not. So I think you bring up a really good point. Anything else people can think of? Go ahead.
Yeah, so we all have like our natural biases whenever we're sort of like thinking about something. So it's really important for someone to give constructive criticism that is highly detailed. This allows for like many opportunities to ask questions, sort of get to the bottom of it, elaborate, and then you're kind of like learning on the spot right there and then, so you can make up for the deficiencies that your biases have caused you initially.
Okay. All right, like that. That's your everything? Are you good?
I'm stretching.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we got some things down. So on this next page are the things that can hinder us from accessing your power, right? So if you look at this diagram right here, the power is in the middle. Think about that power as something inside of you that is the sun. But you have potentially these shells or things that are blocking that access to that power. And they could be other people's image of me has more weight than my image. I'm afraid of my power. I don't want to be different. I'm not saying none of y'all, but you can imagine growing up, especially in high school around those adolescent ages where the herd mentality is real. I'm just doing what the group does, even though I think it's a bad idea and I shouldn't be listening to this person because they don't have the best decision making. If I accept my power, then I have to be responsible for it. So sometimes people don't fully shine and be all of who they are because they are afraid that maybe they'll use it in a way that's not ethical or moral. So, quick story. I'm finishing up at Berkeley, right? I had spent a year synthesizing drugs in an organic chemistry lab. I was pretty good at it. So I could look in the back of a medicine bottle, look at the active ingredient. I could go ahead and write out the two-dimensional structure of it, the three-dimensional structure of it. Then I could go to the chemistry library and look up reactions to then synthesize that. And then I had experience synthesizing prostaglandins in the lab. A lot of power, right? So, I grew up with some people who I say are lukewarm. There's some people who are positive of my friends, and a couple of them, you know, was dipping below the positive into the negative category. And they was like, Fred, you know, we heard you real good with those chemicals and stuff. I'm like, man, what you talking about? Dude, shut up. He's like, nah, you over here at Berkeley, you know, mixing up chemicals. What's up with that? And so they were like, listen, we'll give you $40,000 to set up this lab for us. We'll give you $10,000 a week just to make sure we can maintain it. What's up? So I'm sitting here and I was like, I can use my power for good or I can use it for evil. I mean, you think I'm playing? I sat there and I thought about it for probably about a good 30 seconds, you know, and that's a long time in regards to how fast people be thinking, right? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. They're like, you sure? Nah, you can just take a step back. You ain't even got to be involved with that mug. And I'm like, hell nah. First of all, there's no way I would set that up and you guys would let me go. Like, no. You would find a way to drag me into this mug for the rest of my life. And second of all, I don't want in my conscience to create drugs that are actually causing harm to folks. Like, I don't even want to get down like that. But my point being is that yes, when you acquire power, sometimes people are afraid to be responsible for that. Because you could go in a different direction that maybe harms instead of serves and, you know, honors people and helps them. So it's something to think about, right? I've never really pushed beyond my perceived limits. There's some of us where, yeah, you got an A in that class, but you really studied and you cruised. Are you supposed to be impressed with that? Or do you grow when you get up to the edge of what's challenging you, where you believe that maybe you can't get to the other side and you push through so you get better because you stretched yourself? So that's something that has to be an internal standard of yours if you really want to get to the full access of your power, right, of your sun, by pushing and always thinking about how do I push beyond my perceived limits? And then when you do, right, because this may be your perceived limit and you're trying to push to get to the other side, and you get to the other side, you like, oh, I can actually go up here. And then you push to the other side and you're like, oh, I can go even higher. Because I can guarantee that each person in this room has a superpower that you have not identified yet or fully developed. Fully developed. But it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes focus. We know intuitively and logically that the thing that you spend the most time thinking about is where you send your energy to, and that's what you're the best at. And some people are really good at worrying. That's what they do. They move outside of their body into the future and they worry about something that hasn't happened. And other people take that energy and focus on what's in front of them and pushing themselves forward. But we're the best at the things that we put our energy towards, and those are the things that we think about the most. And so that's what I want you guys to really be thinking about moving forward, is how do I make sure that I can push myself beyond my perceived limits and get to the other side and start opening up these areas that maybe are dormant or I just didn't even know existed. Talk to me, y'all. What you guys thinking?
You need that push to, like, sort of get momentum, to get even more power, like, over and over. Like, I believe, like, the hardest part is just starting out. Like, if you start out and you have, like, not really assessed your true power yet, and it's just pure effort, kind of don't really know which direction to, like, you know, have that effort go into. But once you, like, push through, the power kind of becomes a tool for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And kind of what Esther was suggesting earlier around having a community of people around you, it's nice if you feel comfortable with yourself being around people who are better at things than you. right? Because a lot of times, you know, we don't want to be in study groups because maybe we feel less than in this particular subject area, and we want to be around everybody who's at the same level. But everybody in your group is getting either B or a C, right? And so you only can help each other so much because you guys are vibrating at the same level, kind of. But I want people in my group who are operating at a higher level, because regardless or not, I'm like, damn, I need to elevate. And I'm going to elevate higher than I would being around a bunch of people where I'm the smartest person in the room and they can't teach me nothing. So I'm looking for people who can help me elevate, because I'm going to rise up higher if I don't have that internal push, or if I don't know that this level really exists, because I've never been exposed to anybody who thought that way at that level.
I was just gonna say, there's nothing worse than thinking you're the smartest person or the best person in any room. Because that person is about to be humbled or they're about to fall behind. And even if it's not true, just believing that means that you're shutting yourself off to so much.
I mean, I would say yes and no. There's some rooms where you probably are the smartest person in that room. No, hear me out. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying that, you know, the people in the room, they're lazy and they ain't really trying to think about that, right? And there's rooms where you have people who, you know, think differently than you, and you believe you're the smartest based on your ego, not based on you actually being the smartest, right?
I was always gonna get the ego. Yeah. not only you're surrounded by idiots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else in virtual land got any thoughts or comments? All right. Other things that can stop us. I'm unsure of myself. Self-doubt. I don't want to be exposed. The imposter syndrome. It's a syndrome. And there's way more people who have that syndrome than you think. And that's the point, is that you have people who are highly successful that are in fear every day that they're going to be exposed because they don't believe in their abilities and haven't owned them. And personally, that's a hard way to live. To be always looking over your shoulder, you know, waiting for somebody to expose something. And then you actually project that out, right? That energy, you can feel that. Or, you know, people who isolate themselves. We don't do that. But I don't need anybody else's help because I'm just the itch, and I've always been the itch, and everybody around me, you know, knows that I am, and I don't need you, right? Until you do. But all of these things are things that some people may do and others to sometimes self-sabotage them really accessing all of their power. And we want to be able to access all of your power and gifts. That's my hope, my highest hope for you. Because if you have a blessing and you don't want it, pass it on to me. I'll take it. I'll oblige you. I'll be like, oh, you don't want that? I'll take that.
I think all these points like can be related back to constructive criticism, because they all kind of hinder your reception of constructive criticism. Like, let's say you have self-doubt, you don't want to be exposed. Well, then you're never going to get that like feedback or get to the next level. If you have like fear of pushing beyond your limits, right? You might still get constructive feedback, but it's only going to be at like your average results, your average effort. You want that constructive criticism when you're like on the brink of your effort.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what's coming up to me right now is in regards to how to give feedback. You know, one of the things I'll also bring up is timing. Because I know in some of my relationships, sometimes people are talking about an idea of something that they want to do in the future, but they're just expressing the idea and they just want you to just marinate on the idea. And then you start to tear that idea down, but they weren't looking for feedback. So one of the things that I do when someone is telling me about something is ask them, what kind of feedback are you looking for? Right? Like, you could give me a personal statement that you've been working on, and I know that there's only like a day and a half before you're trying to turn it in to apply to this university. So I'm not thinking in my mind, I'm not going to tear this down completely, because I don't want you to have anxiety over the next couple days because you spent a lot of time working to get it to where it's at thus far. So I'm asking you what kind of feedback, and I'm just giving you slight things around the edges that you can do because I'm not trying to place that burden on you and have you then, spiral, right? So I asked, and based on what they say, and I do this with my kids, then I'll be like, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Any thoughts, any comments?
No, actually, yeah. So to continue with that, like, kind of leads back to how we receive criticism, also how we give it. Like, if we're aware of kind of criticism they want, we can lead with the positive stuff. Because I like, back to music again. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
But when I give people advice on their music, or if I provide feedback, if someone shows me their song, I ask them what kind of feedback they want. Because I know that unsolicited feedback, whether it be constructive or not, about something specific, can shut you down.
Yeah.
Like, it can totally cripple your process. And that's it goes right back to different forms of criticism. You don't want to be those guys that were assholes to you, and so you can avoid that by asking what kind of criticism people want, and then it's also more effective.
Yeah. So that's what you want. If your intentions with the criticism or the feedback is to be effective, then you want to watch your tone and you want to watch and feel out where that person's at emotionally, and then deliver in a way that they can receive it. Because a lot of times, again, the messenger does dictate, and how you say it does dictate if the person really hears it or not. Unless they're kind of a little bit more hardcore and, and how, based on how they're built. But these are things that, you should try to hopefully know about the person you're communicating to before you then just start, throwing out stuff.
Yeah, always know your audience before you give them criticism. Because first, of course, people, they tend to start off with criticism, but once you get into the flow of the conversation, assess what the understanding is, what background they're coming from, you can assess what would be most valuable for them, what type of criticism can help them the most.
Yeah. All right, we got a couple scenarios. Scenario number 7. You are a molecular biology major in college with an exceptional memory and the ability to recognize patterns. You have the ability to think conceptually, but it takes more time and discipline for you. And it isn't the way you naturally think. This semester, you're taking a challenging upper division physical chemistry course, the physics of chemistry, where the professor is intimidating. She is known for creating unique and challenging problems on her exams. The professor tells the class that on the final exam, students should be able to use all their notes and the course textbook. And we'll have 3 hours to do a total of 8 problems. After the class, you are still absorbing this information. You are currently a C-D+ student. One of your study partners who is doing well in the course mentions to you that you're going to have to change your study strategies to pass the class. You feel yourself getting defensive towards her because she came across so confident about what you need to do. How do you respond in this situation?
Tell her to f off. No, I'm
No, hold on. So, no.
Show me your
How do you respond in this situation? I want to know how you're going to respond.
I mean, if you're getting a D+, I feel like you should already know that you gotta change up how you do it, how you do the work, and how you study. Cause
All right, hold up. I'm going to disagree with that. I'm agreed that you should. But I've come across a lot of students in my lifetime, and there's definitely students that are like, no, I'm not going to do anything any other way. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to lose my way because it's my way. And I feel way more comfortable sticking to something that doesn't work than changing up and being vulnerable and doing something different because it's not my way.
I mean, you can't save people who don't want to be saved.
That's true. But I'm just giving you that counterpoint. But go ahead, so they should know, and then what? What are you going to do?
How do I respond? I mean, I'll listen to what they have to say, and maybe I'll like ask other people and decide what to do.
Okay, I like that. So listen to what they have to say and get some other feedback of some other folks that maybe are doing a little better than you, right? Because you don't want to hear too much with the folks that are at the same level as you, doing the same stuff that they know have not been working. Go ahead.
I'd ask for recommendations.
Okay.
Well, you think I should do it differently, how would you say it?
You would say that after you said F off? Or you
No, I'd say F off, she didn't give me any recommendations.
Okay.
Well, so you're just being a dick.
What,
You need to
what,
change it, I don't know how.
what about you? What you thinking? What you gonna do?
I still random.
It's math class, it's calculus, but what you gonna do with the person who's saying, you know, you want to switch this up? You want to pass this calculus class? It's very end of semester. What's going on?
I mean, if I already have like a model to study, but I can shape it a little bit to, you know, to get better grades. Still running this alright.
Anybody in virtual land, as the student reads, want to add any comments? Where you at, Jackie? Did you hear the scenario?
Can you say it again one more time?
Basically, you're getting a C minus D plus in a class, and the final is 3 hours long, and you have your book and your notes. And someone tells you that's doing better, you want to change your study strategies to do well in this class for this final. How would you respond?
Or say you right.
Okay, I mean, so then what would you ask them? How are you gonna dig in?
I would go by probably asking them to look at their notes or seeing how they do it or what strategies they look at. Like, are you writing questions in a red marker? How are you going back to what you're struggling with? Yeah, that's how I would go about it. I would for sure try to sit around the people who are getting it versus the people who are not getting it, and push myself, to ask those questions that we're so scared of. Because I feel a lot of times I know I'm afraid to sound dumb in most certain, and I don't want to be that person. But sometimes you kind of have to push yourself and ask those uncomfortable questions to get the results you want to be able to understand it.
Okay. So one of the questions that I think I would ask that person, I would ask her, because it's a she, I would ask her, how do you know when you're right when you're doing a problem? What process in your mind you're going through to prove to yourself that not only do you know the information, but that you're actually right? And I would try to see if I can mimic that process, but I would try to counter that with my process. My process isn't working, but maybe I'm not that conscious of my process. And maybe I realize I really don't have a process. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to memorize everything and hope I see something very similar. And then when I don't, I get my feelings hurt, right? But I want to know, what is the process of a couple people in this class that are doing better than me and how they're going about proving to themselves they got the right answer. And then I think I would probably try to implement that. All right, any other thoughts or comments? Go ahead.
Since she's so confident, I'll invite her to a study session, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll shadow her study process. Like maybe she can give me like a copy of what she's working on, right? So I'll also like, as I'm looking at her study process, I'll be annotating that copy of the work, and then like asking a bunch of questions about every step of the process. So I'm kind of like subconsciously intertwining some of her techniques into my own techniques.
Okay. So if y'all want to go there, we can take it to the next level. Because, you know, I was half crazy, but I was always trying to take things to the next level. Has anybody heard of neuro-linguistic programming? Okay, you guys probably maybe seen that show. I think it's called Lie to Me. It was on for a while.
Is it like recall? Something to do with recall?
I don't watch TV.
Okay, all right. So, neuro-linguistic programming. The game is this, and there's a science behind it. There's a biology behind it. If you are right hand dominant, right? 95% of people who are right hand dominant, when you want to access something that's visual and it's something that you remembered, you will look up and to the left, right? And you can even think about people taking exams. They're like this.
Really? Oh, that's crazy.
They're accessing the visual memory by looking up and to the left. If you want to access the visual audio, it's straight ahead to the left. And then I want to say your inner voice is down and to the left. I'm not 100% with this one. But look up and to the right is visual constructive, meaning you're making some stuff up. Then we'll look up and to the right. Straight ahead, audio, constructive, and then I want to say down and to the right is, I want to say it's kinesthetic, when you're using your 5 senses. So I can be sitting here talking to you, and I can be like, oh, okay, so you're talking about your room. I say, you know, describe to me, you know, one of your favorite posters and one of your favorite paintings in your room. And if I see you look up and to the left, I'm like, okay, this person's right hand dominant. This is where they're accessing their actual visual memory. And then I can, at that point, I have your baseline. And I can start asking you questions about your process of how you study. I'm just saying there's levels to it, right? I can start asking you questions about your process of how you figure that out, and then looking at your eye positioning and then map that out. Because if you map it out, you can actually mimic that and see very similar results. And there's classes on neuro-linguistic programming. They used to teach them at UC Santa Cruz. But you can imagine that cops and FBI agents and CIA agents are doing that when they're asking you questions.
You too.
Huh?
They do that to us, right?
No. But I'm just saying, trust me, they are. So if they ever ask you a question, just close your eyes. Yeah, so you know. And then open up. I mean, because it's now I'm saying that people who are left-hand dominant, it's the opposite. Right? People who are ambidextrous, the wiring could be all screwed up. So I'm just keeping it real, right? People who use both hands, their wiring could be messed up. And there's certain people on certain islands where they're right-hand dominant, but that population for some reason has a wiring where it's still up and to the right for visual, you know, memory. Mm-hmm. But most people, like 90+ people, if you're right-hand dominant, you will look up and to the left. And again, you can just get back in the classroom and watch people take an exam, and they're just doing that, looking up to the left and then coming back down. So there's a lot of ways that you can figure out how people think and who think differently than you, and figure out ways to mimic that to find a way to do better or more quality thinking than what you're currently doing if your way is not working. Any thoughts, any comments, any suggestions? Yeah, it's crazy, huh? All right, last scenario. You are a college student majoring in mechanical engineering. This semester you are taking a project-based engineering course that requires students to work in groups. The outcome of the group project is 50% of your grade. At the beginning of the semester, you are placed in a group with Rebecca, who is known to get A's in all her science and math classes. She has high expectations of the individuals whom she works with. For some reason, Rebecca seems to absorb information amazingly quick. And she has a very logical and methodical way of processing information and thinking. As your study group is deciding which parts of the group project to divide up among members, you end up with the part that isn't in your area of strength. Damn. but that's your luck of the draw. You don't want to look weak, so you take your assignment and wrestle with it. You wrestle with the individual assignment, but a few days before the assignment is due, your group meets to integrate all of the parts of the project, and Rebecca begins to ask some key questions about your part of the project that reveals that there's some flaws in your approach and design. How do you respond?
Make excuses. No, I'm just kidding.
Ask different questions.
I mean, I'm just saying, this is real life right now, right?
Ask the group in what ways can it improve and what can it integrate better with theirs. See what they're doing and just asking what would work better for them, because it is a group thing and because it's not your area of expertise. Having input on ways that would better integrate with the rest of the project would also not only help you but serve the project better than coming up with it on your own.
Okay, so you taking the humble pie approach. Is that what everybody's doing? What are you gonna do?
Well, it seems like this Rebecca person is like really a genius, so I'll just ask her and see what she tells me.
Okay. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but I don't know if that's going to be empowering you moving forward, because you still need to be able to think and become an engineer in the future. So is there any way that you can still kind of get some feedback, but then still don't surrender to someone else's approach and not you try to add some value or own that or learn that along the way?
Maybe like I come up with my own idea and then ask her about like what's wrong or what's right about it.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna say come up with new idea, because the ones you had before wasn't no point, right? So you want somebody that you can bounce ideas off of and see if they can try to find some holes in it. Is that okay? All right. Anybody else? Anybody in virtual land? Okay, they moving and shaking. What you thinking, Andrew?
Maybe there's some flaws like initially, cause like maybe some maybe the flaws are found because the organization is all messed up, right? I think maybe a good step to take after all those questions, like kind of like a reset, sort of starting from the beginning, like telling the story and going through everything detail by detail.
Okay. Now, I like the reset. I don't know if telling the story, I mean, we can work with telling a story where you break down your process into steps and you try to figure out what part of those steps is not working or is flawed thinking, potentially, right? Is that another way of kind of saying that story piece where there's particular steps along that story and you're trying to figure out what parts are like not fitting? So that is another way to be empowered, where very similar to some of the ideas that came about the criticism, you want detailed criticism that can begin to dissect out specifically what's wrong and can you find solutions to that? Is that fair? Okay. So what I like about these scenarios is that we can try to place ourselves in these situations, and then we can go back and think about some of the advice we gave ourselves earlier on in this workshop and try to apply those, right? Because a lot of times in real life, you know, the things that we talked about earlier sound good in theory, but then we get caught up in our emotions and we're like, you know, and what my highest hope for you is that when you are faced with criticism, that you can open yourself up to the possibility of what this person may be saying and weigh it, but also stay empowered with what you do next. Right? We don't want to blindly just accept someone else's process without us having a way of thoroughly going through and thinking about it, and then deciding if we want to take all of that or some of that or not. Right? We still have to be strong thinkers on our own.
Yeah, you may not know everything, but it's like no excuses. At least make an attempt at a theory.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's it. So at this point, we'll conclude this workshop. But I appreciate it. I mean, hopefully these kind of workshops are helpful. Last semester we did cover, a lot of the intellectual pieces, but you would be surprised how much of these emotional pieces and wrestling with fear and doubt hinder us from really accessing our power. And, we have to learn how to be fearless, and we have to give ourselves permission to be vulnerable and push beyond our perceived limits, so we can really figure out what's under the hood and what we're working with and how fast our car can go, right? I mean, if everybody on the freeway is doing the speed limit and it's 70 miles per hour, and then you have somebody who then says, I don't care about the speed limit, and they're doing 90, but you're still rolling in the Lambo, and then when you get to 150, then it starts to open up and be like, now I'm about to do something. I want you guys rolling as fast as you guys can, right? Right? I want you guys to hit the 210, right? I mean, I'm just saying, if that flow and that power that you have, right? And because, again, when everybody around us is doing 70, we're like, that's okay because I'm doing 85, 90, and I'm getting an A. But you're capable of doing 210. All right, y'all. Good workshop.